Welcome. My name is Jody Craner. I'm with the Wisconsin Alzheimer's Institute. Thank you today for joining us on our topic, which is financial scams, fraud, relentless targeting of older adults. We have two experts today that will present, and then we're going to open up to questions. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted online along with the PowerPoints. Our first presenter today will be Jeff Kirsten. He's the agency liaison for the Bureau of Consumer Protection. He's the agency liaison for the Bureau of Consumer Protection in Wisconsin Department of Agriculture. I'm not sure which screen you're seeing actually. Let me just pull down. I think there's switch screen. All right, here we go. Sorry about that. So, excuse me. So our first expert is going to be Jeff. He's is the agency liaison for the Bureau of Consumer Protection within the Wisconsin Department of Agriculture, Trade, and Consumer Protection. As the agency liaison, Jeff travels around the state to educate the public, business, and law enforcement on privacy protection, data security, identity theft, and other areas of consumer protection. Jeff has over 12 years of experience as a police officer and is a prior consumer protection investigator for the Bureau of Consumer Protection. Our second expert is Doreen Betch. She is a social worker by trade and has been in practice since 1988. She has done numerous adult protective services or APS investigations herself at the local level, as well as supervised a team of APS workers. Doreen has worked at the state level for 5 years, providing technical support for all things elder abuse in 70 counties and 11 tribes in Wisconsin. Her current position is an elder abuse victim liaison coordinator at the Greater Wisconsin Agency on Aging Resources, otherwise known as GWAR. Again, we're going to hold questions to the end. Please feel free to put them in the chat as well as comments. And it's my pleasure now to turn the floor over to Jeff to begin sharing. And I'm going to make sure I've got you set up here.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Jody, for having me. I hope everybody doesn't have too much background noise. I'm in a new conference room, and of course, right before I get ready to start talking, the air handler just turned on, and so that's why I threw my headset on to hopefully cut down on that a little bit. Looks like we got a lot of people joining us today. This is really exciting. I may have worked with some of you in the past. I work with a lot of people at senior centers and ADRCs and adult protective services workers across the state. And excited to get this information out to those of you that might not know me, because I travel all over the state to present on this topic. I do a lot of presentations on identity theft and scams, specifically scams that target our seniors. Try to get the information out about how to spot these scams and how to avoid them and help people not lose their money, not lose their personal information, and then have their identities stolen. So while you're listening to me today, this hopefully will be good information that you can take back to in your personal lives, but then also take it back professionally. And if you think this is a valuable presentation and you want to reach out to me and have me come out and speak to the individuals that you work with and that you serve, I'd be more than happy to do that. With that said, let me share my screen here quick. All right, here we go. So just started off here with some quick statistics. 5.2 million reports of scams to the federal government last year. $8.8 billion, billion with a B, lost. That's up 30% from the year before. Unfortunately, there's another stat out there that says that only 1 in 11 victims comes forward. So really, we might want to just add some zeros to the end of this. And we're looking at 50, 60 million reports of scams and billions and billions of dollars lost. It seems to be on the rise. Obviously, these criminals are making money doing this, and we all get the same emails and text messages and phone calls. So that's what we're going to focus on today. A lot of people find this interesting. at younger people fall victim to scams at a higher rate than our seniors, 2 to 1. Now, don't ask me what that is. If just younger people are more willing to talk to strangers on the internet or more willing to share information, more on social media, maybe a combination of all of that. Now, if there's any good news for our younger people, is on average, they don't lose as much money. And of course, when I'm at a senior center or doing a senior presentation, that's because the seniors all like to tell me you don't have as much money when you're in your 20s. And of course, that's the bad news for our seniors, is that on average, they lose 3 times as much. Now, I know that this number here says 1,600. That's just an average. I'll unfortunately share stories with you today of victims that I've talked to that have lost tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars to some of these scams. When I'm doing this presentation, I want to give the seniors something that they can look for. I mean, I can't cover all of the scams. I can't cover all of the different twists on what's out there. There's always going to be a new one, but I hope to give the seniors some red flags to look for. And payment options or methods is a really good one to start with. Gift cards. Gift cards are meant to be used as gifts. There's nothing wrong with gift cards. Hand them out in the Christmas cards, the birthday cards, the holiday cards. If you're the recipient of these gift cards, great, go use them. But I can't stress this enough, is that if somebody's talking you into going to the convenience store, the gas station, the grocery store, to buy a gift card to somehow get out of trouble, to pay for legal fees, to pay for some kind of government services, 100% that is a scam. And then, of course, we have the good old bank wire transfer, transferring money through services like Western Union or MoneyGram. Don't see that as much, but that's still out there as well. Legitimate services, as long as you personally know who you're transferring the money to. But if it's just somebody you're talking to online, really good chance that is a scam. Excuse me. And then we got the new player on the block, the right side of the screen. Hopefully everybody recognizes that symbol, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency. Not really here to talk a whole lot about crypto, although I do get lots of questions about it. I just bring it up in this presentation as a red flag of a payment method to look out for. You might not know much about crypto. You might not know much about Bitcoin or even how to buy it. But if you grab your phones right now or your computer and you do a quick little internet search for Bitcoin ATM near me, I think you're going to be shocked at how close you are to a machine where you can feed money into this machine and buy Bitcoin, even though you might not know what that is. Criminals are talking victims into doing this, going to the bank, pulling out money, driving to one of these machines, feeding money into that machine. The story that they give the victim makes sense. And then when the victim gives that information to the criminals over the phone, that money is gone immediately. And that's the common denominator, if you will, with all of these payment methods. The criminal gets their hands on the money right away, and it becomes very, very difficult for law enforcement or even us at the state to try to track where that money goes. That's why they like gift cards, those prepaid gift cards. They like cryptocurrency. They don't like the bank wire transfer as much because there is a little bit more to track, but 3 things to look out for. How do they scam us? Email, text, phone calls, that's certainly the big 3, but that's not the only thing you have to worry about. They will pay for ads to pop up on social media sites. They'll pay for ads to pop up on computer screens. We'll talk about that one a little bit more later. They might even pay for a paper envelope or postcard to show up in the mail. Just because it shows up in person in paper form doesn't necessarily mean that you can trust it. These criminals are desperate to get their messaging in front of everyone because it's a numbers game to them. The more they can get their messaging in front of you, eventually, it's just a matter of time before there's something going on in somebody's personal life where that just makes sense. And victims just make that one mistake of trusting something, a phone call, an email, a text, clicking on a link, and before you know it, you think you're talking to somebody legitimate, but you're talking to a criminal. They certainly call us a lot, so let's kind of start there. Caller ID, it's pretty much worthless. They can make your caller ID say whatever you want, or whatever they want. So they can make it look like something legitimate, make it look like it's the sheriff's department or the local police department, the Social Security Administration, the Red Cross, you name it, IRS. Whatever number shows up on caller ID, you can't trust. The only thing really it's good for is to look at that number and go, I don't recognize it. And if you don't recognize the number, just don't answer, even if it looks local. Most of these scam phone calls look local because they found out a long time ago that victims are less likely to answer a call where they don't recognize the area code. So now they just make it look like a local number and they get more people to answer. If you do answer one of these calls, it's not the end of the world. The best advice is don't say anything. Don't push any buttons on your phone. Just immediately hang up. Sometimes you answer and it's those robocalls. There's that 2 or 3 seconds of silence and then the message will start. Try to get you to push a button on your phone or say something into your phone. Try to avoid doing that. Just hang up. What I normally talk about on this slide is this at the bottom here, can you hear me? And can you hear me okay? And before you know it, you just said yes into the phone. They record your voice saying yes. Maybe they call up the bank or some business you have an account with and they now have a recording of your voice and they can get through different levels of security with that. But it's 2023. And I'm sure you've heard about AI and ChatGPT and this artificial intelligence that's out there, and it's progressing really, really quickly. It is so easy now for a computer to mimic somebody's voice, and it doesn't take much. I've seen live demonstrations where it's just a couple sentences of information spoken into a computer, and that computer can speak in that voice, and the criminals can make that voice say whatever they want, even words that were not originally said. So you want to really avoid talking at all with these criminals because they might be recording your voice. And the more you engage with them, the more they call you. They're just encouraged to call you. We don't want to give them an inkling that you're willing to pick up the phone and answer. I'm not saying they give up, but they do seem to tend to call less and less the less you engage with them. And the opposite is certainly true. The more people engage with these criminals, the more they call. But of course, they don't only call us. They email us, they text us. I'm sure you've seen all these messages. Somebody just charged $999 to your Amazon account. The item you ordered shipped. Click here for tracking information. There's a problem with billing. Click here to, fix whatever's going on with that, item that you supposedly ordered just the other day. Well, if you didn't order anything the other day, it's easier to figure out that that's fake. But all of us have been there where we literally did just order something yesterday. And even me, it catches you off guard. That must be, this must be that. And it's just human nature to connect those dots. And you're tempted to click on those links. Never click on a link unless you know for sure who sent that to you. Never trust the phone numbers that show up in these messages. You just make that one mistake and you find yourself talking to a criminal and not a real business. You see things like this pop up on social media feeds, too good to be true. There's no such thing as sitting at home and filling out surveys, winning $500, $1,000, Amazon, Walmart, Costco, gift cards. If I could sit at home and fill out surveys and get $1,000 gift cards, I probably wouldn't have came into work this morning, right? I mean, it's just too good to be true. All victims do is end up giving away all this personal information. They get nothing to show for it, and they just put their identities at risk. So skip right over that stuff. All right, let's talk about some actual scams. There's a lot of psychology these scammers use against victims. They try to get these victims into this excited emotional state where just we as human beings don't tend to make very good decisions. When we're panicked about something or we're kind of freaked out about something, I'm sure you can think back in a time in your life where you made a poor decision. Well, they try to manipulate situations specifically to do that. And one thing they like to impersonate is the government, because when you pretend to be from IRS or Social Security or even a law enforcement officer, it's easy to say something really scary to somebody over the phone. Like, you owe back taxes, and if you don't pay them right now, they're going to send the police to your house and arrest you. Or you have a warrant for your arrest. Or the new twist I'm hearing from Social Security: your Social Security number was used in the state of Texas to rent a car. The police have the car stopped. They found blood in the car, evidence of drug trafficking, human trafficking. Whoa, all this scary sounding stuff. And all of a sudden the victim panics. And it's at that moment where they don't think straight anymore. All of us don't think straight when we're panicking. So by the time they get to the point of their scam pitch, where they're talking to somebody going to the bank and pulling out money and driving to a Bitcoin ATM or driving to a convenience store and buying prepaid gift cards, victims are not thinking straight. Will the government ever call us? Generally, I would say not. I would say if I said, will the federal government call you out of the blue? That one I would definitely say no to. But here's the problem. I know that Social Security, for instance, you can call up your local Social Security office and you can make an appointment for an agent to call you back. What if you made an appointment for somebody to call you back tomorrow at 2:00, and tomorrow 1:59 the phone rings? Says Social Security on the caller ID, but is it? Maybe you're just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Could you imagine getting a scam phone call at just the worst possible moment when you're expecting a call? But the problem is we get so many of these communications, it's just a matter of time before one comes through at the worst possible moment. Now, let's be honest. Somebody who made an appointment with Social Security is probably going to answer that call, right? If you answer and the person at the other end of the line just immediately says, I need your Social Security number, I would say pump the brakes a little bit. See if you can get them to answer a few of your questions. If that's a real agent calling you back, they should know why they're calling you back. They should know what question you had originally reached out about. Kind of, in essence, get them to prove that they are who they say they are before you start verifying information. Because if you're talking to a criminal, you're not verifying it. Of course, you're just handing it over. Speaking of being in the wrong place at the wrong time for one of these communications, I was at a sheriff's department not that long ago, and they told me about a victim of this scam, a utility imposter scam. In the area of the state that I was in, XL Energy was the big power company, but this works for all of them. We Energies, WPS, Alliant, MG&E, even the little local power companies, they all have scams related to them. It's a simple scam. They call the victim up. Of course, that's what caller ID says. Of course, that's who they say they're with. And they tell the victim something scary. You're behind on your bill. And if you don't pay this right now over the phone, I've got a crew in the way to your house to turn your power off. I need you to pay right now. I might be able to stop them. Well, the sheriff's department that I was at told me that one of their citizens got this phone call, and that's exactly what they told her. And she walked over to her, while she's on the phone with them, she walked over to her living room window and she looked outside. Guess what happened to be driving down her street? Yes, a power truck from XL Energy happened to be coming down her street. Put yourself in her shoes for a second. Who wouldn't think that you're dealing with the real power company? Oh my gosh, they're here. They're going to turn my power off. She panicked. And before you know it, she lost $5,000 over the phone that day. And it went into the pocket of a criminal, not the actual power company. Now, I kind of highly doubt that she was $5,000 behind on her power bill. I guess could be, but that sounds a little far-fetched. But I can tell you this. Once all the victims I've ever talked to, once the criminals have a victim on the hook, they're really, really good at figuring out how much money that victim has and figuring out ways to extract as much as possible. I'm sure that they mentioned something about late fees and penalties and who knows, they're limited by their imagination of things they could make up to try to get more and more money out of that person. Now, I hate to Monday morning quarterback a victim. I urge victims to come forward, report these to us at the state, give us a chance to look into it. And I don't want to do anything that hinders that. But if we just look at this situation and remember that When you're on the receiving end of a phone call, an email, a text message, you just don't know who that is. Can't trust caller ID. Can't trust what they say. Of course, a criminal will just lie to you. And nowadays with artificial intelligence, you can't even necessarily trust what the person sounds like. You can always hang up the phone. You know what? If we hang up on the real power company, well, that's okay. We can always call them back. And if we hang up on the criminal, well, that's the desired outcome. So let's say we hang up. Now we're trying to get a hold of the power company. How do we do that? Well, you don't want to trust the number that showed up on caller ID. You don't want to trust the phone number that might have showed up in an email or a text message. You can't trust those. But I bet there's a number on your bill. I would trust that. And this works kind of across the board. There's a number at the top of your bank statement. There's a number on the back of that credit card in your wallet. Always do that little bit of extra homework. Don't take the shortcut of just trusting a number that showed up on your phone or your computer. Always do that extra homework to ensure that you're talking to the real business or the real government agency. Tech support. Oh goodness, so many different ways this scam can go. They might call you up. They pretend to be with Microsoft, Apple, Google. They pretend to be this really, really helpful IT professional that, oh my gosh, your computer is infected with all these viruses. Of course, tell you something scary, but they swoop in and I'm here to fix it. And you just sit back and relax. I'm going to send you a link and you click on that link and they'll just remote into the computer and fix it. Well, if a victim clicks on that link, all of a sudden they watch somebody else moving that mouse pointer around on their desktop. That means somebody's in the computer. And if you don't personally know who that is, and it's a criminal, they have full access to do whatever they want while they're in there. They might install their own malware, viruses, ransomware. They might sign a victim up for fake antivirus coverage and just charge them, $500 a year. And of course, then they're going to call back next month and there's a new virus out there and you need this new update, but it's going to cost you more money and more money and more money. It never really ends. They're just kind of limited by their imagination. But a particularly nasty version of this scam is it often starts with a pop-up window on your computer. It's red, it's scary looking. It says, your computer is infected with a virus. Do not turn it off. Call this 1-800 number. I've talked to 2 victims recently that have told me they got that message. They both told me they thought it was a scam and they hit the power button on their computer and it didn't work. The criminals were able to remotely disable the power button. And there was no other way to close this window down. They didn't know what to do. That was the moment that they panicked. They're not thinking straight. They didn't, remember that, oh, you could just pull the battery out of the laptop. You can unplug the computer from the wall. You can just shut the screen. You can maybe hold the power button down for 10 seconds. They didn't know what else to do, so they called the number. One victim told me that before it was said and done, they talked her into going to the bank and pulling out $17,000. Again, logic kind of goes out the window once they have a victim on the hook. Here's the angle that they used with her. They told her, again, remember, they're kind of pretending to be this helpful IT person. Oh no, your computer's infected with a virus. The criminals are in your computer. You do online banking. All your money is at risk. We need to protect your money. So she's going to the bank to pull her money out, thinking she's protecting it. And of course, they tell her, don't tell the bank what you're doing. Of course, the bank is going to tell you that your money is safe. They would never admit that your money is at risk. You can't trust them. You got to pull that money out. That's the only way you know that your money is safe. So she pulls out $17,000. They talk her into going to a convenience store that has a Bitcoin ATM in it. She feeds $17,000 into this machine. They tell her, oh, we're just going to transfer your money temporarily to this other account. It's super safe and secure. Look, you're at a machine inside of a well-known convenience store. This is all on the up and up. Just going to temporarily transfer your money into this other account. She gives that information to them over the phone when the receipt prints off, and click, they hang up on her because now they've got her $17,000 and they don't really need her anymore. Another victim I talked to, very similar thing. This victim didn't lose money, but got really close. They sent him a link. He clicked on the link. They got into his computer. They showed him all these scary looking files on his computer. where it looked like there was 3 attempts to pull money out of online banking for $18,000, 20 some thousand dollars, and 30 some thousand dollars. And they're pretending to be not only the IT professional here to help, but also fraud investigators. So they tell this victim, hey, you want to help us catch the bad guys? Here's what we're going to do. See one of these wire transfers for $18,000? Let's see if we can catch the criminals. So what we're going to do is we're going to wire you $18,000 and go into your bank account. We want you to go to the bank, pull that money out, send it where the criminals want you to send it, because we're going to track it. And then we're going to be able to catch the criminals. The victim made it all the way to the bank before the bank stopped him and told him that that's a scam, that's not a real wire transfer, that there's no $18,000. Had the victim pulled that out, just like a bad check, that wire transfer would have bounced, and then the victim would have lost that $18,000. Lots of ways this scam can go. Romance, relationship, sweetheart scams, another one that we see a lot of. I believe, according to the FBI, this is considered the #1 scam in the US. I think more money lost to this than all other scams put together. These are long-term scams. It kind of took off with COVID. We're isolated from each other. We're humans. We like companionship. So many more people started talking to each other online. You know, if you play games online, there's always a chat function. Every social media platform has a chat function. You know, if you respond to one of those public Facebook posts, you get bombarded with messages from people that want to talk to you, and eventually people just start talking. And criminals are out there, and they will devote weeks, months, and years into building up these relationships, building up that friendship. And then eventually something bad's going to happen in their life and they start asking for money. Some red flags that somebody could be tied up in a romance scam. The other party has professed that they love you and they've never met you face to face. They have all these excuses of why they can't meet you. They're in the military, they're serving overseas. That's a popular one. You know, you're in Wisconsin, they're in Texas, California, Florida. It's just too far away to drive. Got to have some kind of surgery before I can get on an airplane. Of course, that opens up the door to asking for money for this fake surgery. Once they get the victim to pay once, it just becomes easier and easier for them to get the next payment, the next payment, the next payment. I've seen it where the victim is so convinced that this is real. And it seems like everyone else in the family and law enforcement, they all know that it's a scam, but they can't convince the victim. And the victim just chooses to keep pulling money out and just keep sending it to this person. And, you know, these can go on for years and years. Another long-term scam are the lottery contests, sweepstakes. They like to pick on Publishers Clearinghouse a lot. It's a popular business. We've all heard of it. You've won $30 million in a brand new Mercedes. It's always a Mercedes. And, you know, shh, don't tell your family, that'll ruin the surprise. You know, don't you want to surprise them that you won the lottery? And, you know, the film crew's showing up tomorrow and they're going to have a giant check and a balloon and you're going to be all over the news and it's happening. But of course, right before it happens, you've got to pay some handling fee or processing fee or some kind of duty for customs, and it's all fake. Do people win stuff in life? Absolutely. But that's the red flag to look out for, is that if you actually win something, you never have to pay out of pocket to get to it. If you win some money, might you be on the hook for taxes? Absolutely. Well, they can just take your taxes out of your winnings and just give you what's left over. But once they get the victim to pay once, just like with the romance scams, it becomes easier and easier for them to get the next payment, the next payment, the next payment. These just go on for years and years sometimes. Now, I can't see everybody. It looks like we've got about 64 people joining us right now. But just individually, I'm going to do a quick little live demonstration. I can kind of show you how easy it is for the criminals to manipulate us, and just how alike we all are. So a quick show of hands. Who listening to me right now likes to admit that you're wrong? Now, if we were all in a room with each other with 64 people, I'm guessing 2 or 3 might have raised their hands. And we probably would all be laughing at each other because, of course, nobody likes to admit that they're wrong. And that's exactly what the criminals use against us. Once they get the victim to pay once, in order for that victim to not pay the second time, in essence, they kind of have to look at themselves in the mirror, admit that they were wrong, admit that they lost money, admit that they got scammed, that this was all fake and they fell for it, and not send that next payment in. It's actually easier to not admit that you're wrong, hold on to that sliver of hope that this is real, send that next payment in, and just pray that, you know, the money shows up or this person shows up and sweeps you off your feet. But of course they don't. And then the next payment and the next payment and the next payment. Now all of a sudden people are just too financially tied up in this one. I've talked to victims that have lost tens and tens of thousands of dollars. I actually, a bank shared $1 million story with me of a lady that thought she won 2 cars, and she was cashing out CDs at the tune of $25,000 a piece to pay for every time these cars supposedly crossed a state line as they were getting shipped closer and closer to Wisconsin. And the daughter came in and did an audit of the bank account, and there's about $1 million missing that they can't account for. Now, I don't know if it's $1 million for that one particular scam. Maybe there was multiple things going on, but they're good at figuring out how much money people have and trying to get as much of it as possible. The grandparent scam. When I present at ADRCs and senior centers, I mean, most of the room raises their hand that they've received this phone call before. The problem with this phone call is that all the grandparents that I talk to, they all tell me, you know what, sometimes the real grandchildren, you know, they don't always make the best decisions in life. And that's the problem with this scam, is that on some level, this can always be a believable phone call. The easy ones to get to the bottom of it, you know, where the criminals did no research. They don't know if you have grandchildren. They don't know the names of your grandchildren. They don't know what special name they call grandma or grandpa or nana or papa or, you know, whatever the special word is. Those are the easy ones to figure out. But the grandchildren, lots of them, are all over all the social media platforms. Everybody wants to be the next influencer, right? Everybody wants their videos to go viral and get those clicks and get those likes. Well, if criminals see that and they do the homework, they might know the names and they might know those special phrases or special names that they call a grandparent. And this is one where the criminals have been confirmed they're using artificial intelligence to mimic the voices of grandchildren. So this is really tricky. You know, as a grandparent, you know, you receive a phone call, it sounds just like your grandson or your granddaughter. They know your name, they know the name of the grandchild. They might even know some details of what's going on in life. You know, maybe they're on a vacation right now, or what state are they visiting, or where are they going to school. And when they say that stuff, it sounds so much more believable. So the only advice I can give seniors is you know, in person, come up with a family password. You know, just a unique word that only the immediate family members know about. You know, keep it quiet. Don't post it on Facebook. If you ever got this call and just for a second you thought it was real, ask for the family password. You know what? Even if you haven't had a chance to set it up yet, ask for the family password. Because the next thing you hear from, if you're talking to a criminal, is going to be click, because they know at that point they can't fool you. Another strategy, a senior over by Chippewa Falls told me that whenever he gets this phone call, he immediately says, "Is that you, Jimmy?" Well, of course, the criminal says, "Yeah, Grandpa, it's Jimmy." He doesn't have a grandchild named Jimmy. You know, offer up a fake name, see if the criminal latches onto it. I was like, I think that's brilliant. Then you can feel good about hanging up on that phone call. Check overpayment scams. We already talked about, you know, fake wire transfers. People try to sell stuff online. There's so many criminals out there that are going to try to send you a check, you know, a cashier's check, a money order, all these things that we've been told we can trust. You can take them right to the banks. You can show them to the banks, and they can't even tell you that they're fake. The only way to really find out is run it through the system. But trust me, they will bounce. And they don't just bounce in a day or two. They can take weeks and even months before they bounce. So the trick usually is, you deposit the check into your account. You know what? You keep a little extra money for yourself, pull the rest out, send it back to me. Of course, then when that check bounces, the bank's going to be calling you up saying, hey, that didn't go through. We need that money back. Well, if you've already sent it back to somebody else, you see the problem. Try to reach about your car's auto warranty. This is a postcard that showed up to the house. Even if it shows up in paper form, you can't necessarily trust it. Some of these scammers, they try to skirt the line of looking like real businesses. 100% fake. They're just stealing people's money. And then when your vehicle breaks down, your situation never, ever, ever applies. They never have to worry about paying out. One consumer told me that he was on the phone with these guys and told them, I don't think you're going to cover my truck. It's in the front yard on blocks and it doesn't have an engine. You know what they told him? Yeah, sure, we'll cover it. Of course they'll cover it. They'll tell you whatever you want to hear to get your premium money because they're never worried about paying anything out. Charity scams. All right, this gets a little tricky. So back when we were at the beginning, I didn't really talk much about the do not call list in Wisconsin. The do not call list, of course, doesn't stop scam phone calls. What it stops is telemarketing. Telemarketing is where a real business wants to sell you a product or a service. And we recommend being on the do not call list if you don't want to receive those calls. Whether you're on the list or not, you're going to receive the scam phone calls because they're criminals. They're not intimidated by our do not call laws in Wisconsin. But then you get to charities. Charities are nonprofit. They don't have to follow the do not call list. So here you are. Let's pretend you're on the do not call list and you get a phone call from a charity. There's no way to tell whether that's real or not. Can't trust caller ID. Can't trust what they say. Of course, they'll lie to you. You can't, and it might be real, it might not be. And there's no way to get to the bottom of it. So the only advice I can give people when it comes to charities is never, ever, ever give money over the phone when you receive the phone call. Don't let somebody call you up and tell you where your money should go. You decide where your money should go, if it should even go anywhere. If you're looking to do research, charitynavigator.org is a good place to start. A lot of these fake charity scams, they're the support the police, the fire, the EMS, the Blue Line this association, the benevolent officer that association. There's no way to tell if that stuff's real or not. If you want to support the police, the fire, the EMS, I bet you know where those folks are located in your community. Giving local is always a good option. At least then you know where your money's going. Investment scams. There's lots of investment scams out there. We're not actually the folks that handle investment scams, but I put it in my presentation just because we're looking for victims to come forward and report it to us. All of these things that you see on the screen are actually looked into by investigators over at the Department of Financial Institutions. So if someone loses money because of something with the stock market, they bought cryptocurrency as an investment, precious metals, somebody sold them a timeshare as an investment opportunity, they got tied up in some kind of a multi-level marketing scheme, a Ponzi scheme, just we urge victims to come forward, report it to us. If you report it to us, we'll send it over to DFI for you. DFI takes in stuff all the time that they send over to us. We communicate really well with each other. All right, so there's no magic formula I can give anyone that can completely stop this stuff from coming in. The criminals are always going to be able to find a way to get their messaging in front of us. But there are some things that we can do. Everybody listening to me right now is a consumer. The first thing I would do is say, tell everybody, call up your phone service provider, complain about scam phone calls. Lots of them have blockers that they can put in place on your line that'll cut down on some of this stuff, but they usually won't do it until you call up and complain. So that's the first thing I would do. If you have a smartphone, there's a few other options for you. There's some call screening services that you can sign up for. There's some apps you can download that'll cut down on robocalls. Our cell phones are getting better and better with, you see the scam alert, spam risk, telemarketer, those messages that pop up letting you know that that incoming phone call is most likely a scam. That's just your phone telling you, don't even waste your time trying to answer that. Just skip right over it. Lastly, with smartphones, and this is also a really good option for seniors that I find out, is that on both iPhones and Android devices, you can go into the settings on both of your phones or all smartphones, and you can set it so that your phone will not ring unless it's somebody you already have programmed into your address book. So unless you have that number already programmed into your phone doesn't even ring, it doesn't vibrate, you don't even get tempted to answer. Cuts down on a lot of scam phone calls. All those calls that are not in your address book, they just get dumped right to voicemail. You can always check voicemail later to see if you miss something legitimate. I find from a lot of seniors that that's a good strategy for them. But then the question always comes up, well, what happens when, the doctor's office says they're going to call? I don't know what number they're calling from. And, it might be today, tomorrow, the next day. I don't know exactly when they're going to call. Well, two options. You can either just choose to keep checking the voicemail so that you know when they actually called, because of course the doctor's office will leave you a message. But if you want to get that live phone call, well, then just go back into the settings on your phone, just turn that feature off for a day or two. Wait till that phone call comes in and then go back in and turn it on to stop all those other scam phone calls from bugging you, if you will, or annoying you by making your phone ring. Lastly, I hope that everybody listening to me, I hope you don't become the victim of scams. I hope all the people that you work with can avoid these scams. Again, I want to kind of pitch our services. I travel all over the state. We cover every county in Wisconsin. This presentation, our identity theft presentation, and others, they're all completely free. Be more than happy to come out to your place of business, your county. If you can help me put together the audience, I'll deliver this information right to the seniors, give them tools firsthand to help hopefully avoid these scams and not lose money and not lose their personal information. Easiest way to get a hold of me is right there. There's my email address. I guess you could snap a picture of that right now or type it down quick, or I know that this is a recorded webinar as well, so you can always go back and look at this later. If consumers are trying to get a hold of us at the state, we like to brag that we're one of the easiest state agencies to get a real live human being at. No artificial intelligence, at least not yet. Call that 1-800 number right there. I could list off the 7 potential people that would answer that call. Let us know what's going on. We can send information out for free over the phone. We can direct people to the right state agency for whatever is going on in their lives. And if they need to file a complaint with us, if it's something we can help out with, of course, we can walk people right through that process. Of course, there's the email address for our hotline and our website. And I will just leave that screen up on the board here for a second. I see some things coming in through the chat. I don't know if we have any other questions. Oh, great. Thank you, Jody, for putting my email right in the chat. That's handy. Gonna work from the bottom up here. It looks like somebody received a pop-up. Oh, very loud, obnoxious alarm. Yeah, they want you to call that 1-800 number that they put on the screen. Good. It looks like your own IT department helped you. That's exactly how we do it at the state. The IT people are sitting one floor below me right now. And if I have an issue, they'll send me a link. I click on the link and I watch somebody else move the mouse pointer around on the screen. That's okay. A lot of businesses and government agencies do things like that. That's okay, because I literally know those people. I can walk down the flight of stairs and see them face to face. But it's when it's just a phone call and you don't know who that is. That's what you want to watch out for, because that's could just be a criminal that's getting in there. Yeah, it's being recorded. Okay, Jody, was there any other questions, or we could do the little I don't know if you want to go now or let Doreen go first.
Should we go ahead and switch over to Doreen and then capture any additional comments or questions at the end? If you would like to maybe stop sharing and then we can have Doreen bring up her slides.
Yeah, and I see a message in there. If I can share my slides, absolutely. State of Wisconsin, we're open records. I will email my slide deck to Jody, and that can be distributed out to everybody.
And they will also be posted on the WDRN website along with today's recording. The recording, those materials will only be available 30 days to make sure that they're relevant. But I will put in a link at the end that you can go ahead and access them. Sometime next week, they'll be posted. And then Doreen, if you want to maybe bring up your slide set, we were trying to get an audio played earlier with Doreen. I'm not sure if you want to try that again, Doreen, or if you just want to go ahead and do without, but
I think I'm going to have to continue without. I thought I was more technologically savvy than I am. So
I totally appreciate it, how much I missed at the beginning of this session, thought I was on cue. So you are we're seeing your entire slide deck, including the other one, if you want to maybe start at the beginning.
Oh,
this is what I did too at the beginning. If you want to hit.
Maybe I shared the wrong.
Oh, no, you just need to start. Oh, you're almost there. There you go.
Here we go. Better?
You're perfect. That's perfect.
Great.
Thank you.
And hello, everybody. I'm Doreen Getch, and Jody introduced me as an expert, and I must say that I am not. I learn something new every day. I'm passionate about elder abuse. I'm passionate about dementia, and I'm passionate about elder financial exploitation, as you'll find out. And it's always hard to follow up after Jeff has presented, because he's such a good expert on all these topics. I'm going to give you a little bit overview of state of financial exploitation here in Wisconsin. When I first worked at the state, or I still worked at the state, it came to my attention that we were not keeping track of financial exploitation numbers by the counties. Adult Protective Services at the county level, they investigate financial exploitation, but they weren't keeping track of the numbers of the dollars that were lost on these cases that they were investigating. So for the first time in 2021, they reported $29.7 million that was lost. And we do know that this is only the tip of the iceberg, because most cases never come to the attention of Adult Protective Services. I just got the number for 2022, and that number is up to 39 million just in the state of Wisconsin, which is really sad. I just wanted to give you just a look-see about what Adult Protective Services does in Wisconsin and the types of cases they investigate. By far, self-neglect is the largest category, and it always has been, followed by financial exploitation, which is increasing every year. Adult Protective Services here in Wisconsin also investigates physical abuse, sexual abuse, and emotional abuse. And I'm not going to get deep into these topics because we're really here about financial exploitation, but I wanted to let everybody know what Adult Protective Services does. So the other categories that are investigated by Adult Protective Services. And now we're talking about who the abusers are. Jeff did a wonderful job of telling us about the everyday scammers, and believe me, they are rampant across the nation. However, here in Wisconsin, and I think across the United States, the abusers are usually people who are known to the elder victim or in a position of trust. They include family members, spouses, children, grandchildren, caregivers, neighbors, surrogate decision makers, and then that new friend that just shows up with someone at the bank. People are more likely to be an abuser if they are financially dependent on the victim. So oftentimes we see adult children, adult grandchildren who move in with their parents or their grandparents because they have nowhere else to live and they're financially dependent. Or perhaps they have an alcohol or drug issue. They also may have some mental health issues. And oftentimes when we see financial exploitation in the elderly, we also see other form of abuse occurring with that abuse, such as verbal abuse, emotional abuse, or neglect. I'm going to show you a little video, let's hope it works, about why elders are reluctant to report. And I'm not going to show you the film in its entirety. You'll get the idea after a little bit.
We're not hearing the sound. Maybe turn it up. We're still not hearing the sound.
Okay, we're going to skip over that. I will include this in my PowerPoint. I'm not sure why the sound is not working, but sorry about that. And I'll just describe this video before I move on. What it talks about is how people are embarrassed and ashamed to admit that they've been victims of abuse, especially when it's a relative, a daughter, a grandchild, because they believe it reflects negatively on themselves. Like, how could I raise a daughter or a son who would take advantage of me or who would treat me like this? It's a really good film from called the National Clearinghouse on Abuse in Later Life. And I'm sorry that you couldn't hear it. So when APS does investigations, what we focus on is whether or not some form of abuse has occurred. The best practice for adult protective services is to make a face-to-face visit with that elder or that victim and have a conversation with them, observe their environment, interview them, talk to anybody that's connected in their lives, such as a guardian or a power of attorney. We also have the unique statutory authority to review their healthcare records and obtain financial records from a financial institution if there's allegations of financial exploitation. This is just the statute that allows adult protective services to gain access to financial records. And oftentimes this is what we use to fax or send to the bank in order to get these records. What we do when we're out in the field is we're constantly assessing the level of harm and the level of risk. We're looking for supports in that adult's life that could offer some support, such as religious organizations, family, friends. And we're also assessing their decisional capacity, whether we believe that they have the capacity to make certain decisions. Also, Adult Protective Services is constantly looking for services that can remedy the situation, which would allow that adult to continue residing safely in their home. We also determine whether services should be voluntary or involuntary. Voluntary services are always preferred. Involuntary, it takes a court order to order those services, and it's often the most restrictive measure that Adult Protective Services takes. We also have to assess that people who have decision-making ability have the right to make bad choices. I'm sure we've all made bad choices in our lives. I probably made one this morning already. But we have the right to make those decisions, and we learn from them. And so some people can say, well, look at the way this person is living. I could never live like this. Well, if that person has capacity, they have the ability to make decisions about the way they live, even though they do not conform with what we may live like. This just is a slide that shows you how the Adult Protective Services workload has increased over the years. We all know that we're living in an aging population. I myself am considered a senior here in Wisconsin. An elder in Wisconsin is considered 60 and above. So that makes me elderly in Wisconsin. And so we know that workload is going to increase because of the fact that we are aging. So with this in mind, and with I guess, my passion for financial exploitation, a little bit of history on Scam Singo. About a year ago, I watched a webinar. It was called Name That Tune, Name That Scam. And it was such an engaging webinar. The person in charge would play a song and then ask the audience to name the song, and then he connected back to a common scam. So I have a unique partnership with UW Green Bay, Laura Nolan. And I was telling her about this webinar, and she said, well, have you ever heard of Singo? And I'm like, Laura, I live in Beaver Dam, Wisconsin. I have no idea what Singo is. So she explained to me what Singo was, and they play at a few of the local pubs up in the Green Bay area. And it's basically bingo, but you're using songs instead of numbers and letters. So I said, oh, that sounds interesting. And she goes, well, I think we can make up a game called Scam Singo. And I'm like, well, I'm on board as long as you can do the technology with the songs. And as you just saw, my technology skills are not very good. So together we created Scam Singo, and I'm just going to give you a brief overview. If at the end of this brief overview you are interested in learning more, I can certainly send you out. We did 2 train the trainer sessions, and they both were recorded. And as you get the recordings of the webinar, you also get everything you need to play the game, including the playlist. So here is your typical Singo song, which Singo is free to play. These cards were downloaded from the Singo website, and they put in all of these songs that we chose for our Scam Singo game. And then, of course, what you want to do when you're playing is you introduce yourself. You play 20 to 30 seconds of the song that you have chosen. And then you just try to engage your audience with, can you name this song? Do you know who the artist is? And then you say, well, this song was introduced in 1964. What were you doing in 1964? It's just to get a dialogue going with your audience. And then we have talking points that we share after we play the one song. So for instance, we start out the game with Can't Buy Me Love by the Beatles. And of course I was going to play that for you and you'd all be rocking and it'd be fun, but of course I can't do that. Anyway, we start that with that song. And we do know that if you play 23 seconds of the song or less, you're not infringing on copyright from the song, so you can play up to 23 songs. So then we talk about Can't Buy Me Love, and we talk about romance scams. And I'm not going to go into all these talking points because we've heard about romance scams from Jeff, and he did an awesome job presenting on that. And then we move down to the next song, and it's Hello, It's Me. And then we talk about the grandparent scam. The next song we go to is The Sound of Silence by Simon and Garfunkel. And we then talk about robocalls and about how you never answer a call unless you know who's on the other end. And then we talk about, then we go and move on to Under the Boardwalk by the Drifters. And we talk about fishing, but fishing with a PH instead of fishing with a rod and reel. Then we go on to, repeat slide. Then we play a little Elvis Presley, which your audience will be very familiar with, Don't Be Cruel. And we talk about charity scams, natural disasters, things like that. Then we get back into the Beatles with Taxman, and we talk about IRS scams. Then I play a little ABBA, Money, 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 and we talk about work from home scams and money mules, all the things that Jeff talked about in his presentation. The next song we play are Chances Are by Johnny Mathis. And this we relate back to the lottery scam. Chances are, if you haven't bought a ticket, you haven't won. Then again, we end with Secret Love by Doris Day, and we just hammer home, the fact that if anybody asks you to keep a secret, it's not a good thing. And we relay that again back to romance scams. And the last song we play is Help by the Beatles. And what we do is after that, we offer a scam prevention and resource list that we give to the audience. And that has something tangible that they can take with them. When you play this game, we have it automatically set up that there are 2 winners. So you have to have 2 prizes because people won't play unless there's prizes. And the prizes don't have to be big things. They can be small things such as a candy bar, or it can be a free meal site ticket, or anything that a $5 Culver's gift certificate. But you just need to know that if your audience likes the game and wants to continue on playing, you can do that, but you have to have more prizes. If you want more information on Scam Single, I will be happy to mail this out. I can mail the whole package to Jody and she can send it out, or you can email me directly at my email address on the screen, and I'd be happy to walk you through this. So that's all I have to say. It's just Scam Single is basically just a different method of presenting to individuals about scams. I know that recently in Waukesha County at a Brookfield meal site, they played Scam Single, and they had 50 people sign up to play Scam Single, and they had a riot. They just absolutely had so much fun, and they did it as part of their World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take them. But that's really all I have.
I would like to stop the recording at this point, so maybe we can dialogue without that being on the recording. So I am going to go ahead and stop the recording.